Okay, I think we're back. Sorry, guys. I had some issues on my end. My computer shut down. It should be okay now. If you guys hear any weird stuff in behind, it's the dogs. They're playing. They're fighting. They're doing dog things. Anyway, now let's get back to where we were. I apologize again that I kind of drifted off there. So we had. I got to get back here. I was talking about some engines, some insurance, and the Yamaha twist. That's what it was, the Yamaha twist. A little more information on that was the engine itself is working fine now. It's going back out in the field, and we're going to find out hopefully within a week because he's going to tell his guys to use that engine to see how it holds up, and hopefully it's not going to overheat again and blow another head gasket. I've replaced the head gasket, I replaced the water pump, and I had to plane the head in order to get that thing up and running properly. So yeah, that was quite a bit of work. What else? The 9.9s I talked a little bit about. What was going on today? Yeah, I forgot all about this. We sold a propane engine a while back, and the customer brought it back because it was having idling issues, and it turns out that there was cylinder damage. So I got a hold of Mercury about this propane engine, and they sent out a new block. So today I got to swap out a propane block, and I guess it's not really propane block. It's a 5 horsepower regular block that they've converted over to a propane engine is what it is. So I got to put all that together today and throw it in the tank and run it. It seemed to run all right. There wasn't any issues with it. But we'll see. We'll see, because this was my concern with that particular engine. I spoke to Mercury and I said, well, why did this engine go down? And they really didn't have an answer for me. And I said, well, was it the delivery system? Was it broken in wrong? And they said, this was what was said to me. You know what? Just take and run it, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So I'm really hoping that the engine works, and it's not that he actually takes it out and the engine dies on him again, right? Because of the initial problem that's there. Because something was there. Something caused it to go out, and he swears he broke it in right and whatnot. But I did open it up, and there was scoring on alternate sides of the piston. David, welcome and good afternoon, sir. And how are you today? I appreciate you throwing a message up for me. If you have any questions, let me know, or if you just want to chat, perfectly fine. That's great. I kind of want to, now that it's the slower season, I want to maybe do this hopefully every Friday if I get a chance to. I think that's an open night that I have. I think my wife wants to steal my Saturdays. David's doing great. Well, that's awesome. Awesome. You follow the channel, do you? Do you watch the videos? What do you think of the videos? What do you think of the format of the videos, I should ask? I like to do almost like a podcast kind of idea. Those are the ones where I'm kind of walking around the yard and I talk. Because what I found is, and even myself when I'm watching videos nowadays, I listen more so than I actually watch. yeah, because I'm usually busy doing other stuff. So that's what I do. So tonight I'm chatting a little bit about some of my older videos that I've got up. And yeah, customer bought a full-blown problem on Facebook. Yeah, that's happening quite often now. I see it a lot more when in 2020, when the market really started to shift and a lot of the used stuff started coming out of the woodwork. We saw a lot of damaged engines that were sold and then resold and then resold. And yeah, it seems to be a trend that's continuing. Yeah, Facebook Marketplace has made it so easy for people to flog stuff that it's just incredible. Yes, sir, got it to where I know when you post a new video. Oh, awesome. Great. Yeah, so there's that, and I don't think there's any way that we're actually going to get away from that kind of stuff. It just seems to be getting worse. Ideally it keeps me in business, but that's not how I actually want to make money, but it is part of it. This this winter. So typically I get a slowdown period in the winter because all we do is marine stuff and the water's just too hard this time of year. So far I've got a 90, a 115 Johnson. I've got a 60 Mariner. I've got a 140 Johnson, and I think there's another 90 Johnson outside that I got to rebuild. So I'm gonna stay busy doing that stuff. I don't know how long it's gonna take. I did talk to my machinists and said, hey, if I bring you guys over 5 or 6 engines, can I get a break on the price, because I want to sell these engines. Some of the engines I've got up for sale, and some of the engines I'm going to be just repairing for customers that have left it. There's another possibility of, what is it, another 115 sitting there? No. It's a 130. There's a 130 sitting out in the yard that's gone down. It just doesn't idle, and again, it's just worn. It's worn down at the base of the of where the porting is, so it's just not going to idle. So I've got to take care of that. So that might be another one. So I might end up with 6 or 7 of them to do by the time all said and done. And what else did I get stuck with? Or not stuck, I say stuck with, but I guess after you hear what I have to work on, I guess it is kind of getting stuck with. I had a OMC drive come in from the Stringer series. So that's that old white one that you see on OMC boats. And yeah, he was getting oil into it. So in spring, I thought I sealed it up. I thought I got all the right seals done, but it turns out that the one for the steering, it's just a little worm gear that kind of goes through. I missed that one. So he was getting water in there. But the major issue was I replaced the seals in the bottom and fixed that all up. And then he brings it back and he says, yeah, it's just full of water in the bottom. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's either the shafts are buggered, so they're worn right where the seal sits, or it's getting in through your wire that goes up to the top. And he said, well, how does it get through the wire? And I said, well, if there's a break in it anywhere, it'll just simply push the oil out, and then if it's deep enough the water, it'll just simply pull the water back in when it starts to cool down. And sure enough, I popped that drive off. I hooked up the pressure tester, and sure enough, bubbles were coming out where the cable was broken. So I told him initially, I said, I used to fix these with my dad, and my dad and I would just be at these things for hours trying to set these shifters, because it's a certain measurement that this cable has to be, because they pull. And it just take hours to do it. So when he initially brought it in, I said, look, man, if it's going to be the cable, I'm not working on it. I'll do the seals. I'll change bearings. I'll do the seals. I'll do all of that stuff. I just don't want to mess with your cable. And sure enough, what's the problem? The cable. So now I got to go ahead and repair that now. Or he says he's got another one, and I'm sure although I've said I don't want to do it, I'm going to end up doing it. I know I am. I got some other news I got. The news I got was next year I'm going to be solo. Yeah, so Joey left this year because seasonal work, he just wasn't able to make ends meet. And my son stuck it out for 3 or 4 years, and same thing. He's just not able to make ends meet working half a year or 3/4 of a year, whatever we end up working. So he's moving on as well. So it's just going to be this guy. I guess it'll be like it used to be when I guess Dad would sit up front, and he never came to the back in the later years anyway. So I did all the work in the back. I'll still have Linda up at the front to help out, but I'll be swinging the majority of the wrench. So my thoughts are maybe be a little more selective with what I take in for jobs, because I don't have other guys that I have to make money for, and the overhead for the shop is a bit lower, but the overhead on my body and my time is, well, up through the roof. So we'll see what happens. It's gonna be one of those things. I did it for years by myself, and I'm sure that if I buckle down, I can get things done. But we'll see. I'm not really anticipating it yet, but it is what it is. It is what it is. What did we get at for videos? The winterize that went horribly wrong. So I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually deleted a comment on there. I know, shame on me. Any comment's a good comment. People are able to say what they want, but it wasn't a nice comment. They basically stated that I shouldn't be saying anything about that customer, that instead of ripping him a new one, I should have done this or this. And I honestly think that I handled it the correct way. I got him some other options for an engine. I had explained to him already, next time you have to winterize it, this is what you do, or you simply bring it in. And he was real cool with it. And I actually spoke with him, was it this morning or yesterday morning? And he was asking for referrals of where to take his engine to get it replaced, because I've never done one of those. And again, I'm going to be on my own, and I don't want to get into knee deep into something that I don't know anything about. So pulling engines out of Mercruiser or Volvo, yeah, I've done plenty of those, but any of these transmission driven ones, I don't even know if the transmission and the engine all comes out as one. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so I ended up deleting a comment on there. I apologize that you guys maybe or didn't get to read it. But when I ran my forum, I had a policy, and my policy was there was going to be no shenanigans, right? I wanted a safe place where people could come and they could talk about marine stuff and so on and so forth. And we grew a big community of like 11,000 members that all helped one another. And even if I wasn't there to answer questions, I had other people there that would answer questions, and it worked really well. And we had moderators and so on and so forth that took care of all of these things if people got out of hand. And it was very rare for anyone to have to say anything, or hey, that's enough. And guys are pretty good, but this kind of stuff, the world's a different place now, and there's so many keyboard warriors out there that I need to stay on top of that thing, because if we let one go, someone's going to read it, and then we're going to start seeing it in comments all over YouTube, and I simply don't want that happening. I've seen where people get out of hand on some of the YouTube channels that I follow, and I just have no wanting desire to have any of that kind of stuff. Okay, someone broke into the yard. Yes, multiple times. So our building, okay, is situated here, and then kind of diagonal, there's another building that's over here, and our fence kind of goes across between our property line and their property line. They built a fence kind of on we'll move it over here. So we've got this much in common between the two. So they cut a hole in our fence and then went around the corner to the other property and cut a hole in their fence, and then they got into their bins. So what we did was, we didn't want to fix it at the time because it's money that doesn't need to be spent. So we just backed the trailer up against the opening. It was maybe 2 feet high, like they'd kind of a little tunnel that they'd cut. So we backed our trailer up there so that they couldn't get through, which was fine, right? And then a couple weeks go by, and I'm at the back, and I'm looking around. I go, what the hell? There's a big hole in the fence now from top to bottom and right open. So this time they opened it right up so they could get in. And what do you think they stole? They stole like a gas tank off the back of a pontoon boat, and that was it. So I called up one of the local fencing guys, and Dave Clifton. Get to you guys right away. One sec. So I called up a guy, or the guys, and I said, hey, can you come give us an estimate on the fence? So they said, because of what had happened, the way it's situated, the way the posts are, because I got old posts, and I've got 11 gauge wire, and it's gonna be 9 gauge wire, $1,000 to fix these holes, or $5,000 to replace the entire back with the white slats. So I ended up going with the white slats and the new fence. Just get it done. So if they can't see in, there's a better chance that, a lot better chance that they're not going to try and break in. Dale Manley, a lot of your old videos helped me out a lot. I appreciate it. Last year I started working on outboards, mainly 2-stroke. I had an excellent summer, but then it just dropped off a month ago. I started working on... you were busy doing 2-strokes, and then all of a sudden it dropped off. Like end of the season. Like I know that around here, as soon as September hits, everything just kind of drops off as soon as school starts back. And I think if you're down in the States, I think school probably even starts earlier, so maybe repairs at that point would end a bit sooner too. But then we also get that big kick in the pants with our winterizing. David, a question. I got a question about an Evinrude 60 1996 3-cylinder. How do you sync the carbs on it in Lincoln Sync, or can you use a vacuum gauge to set it up? So what I've found is that the easiest way to do that is on each of the carburetors where the actuators are sitting. So that's the part that does this, right? Take and loosen off the actuator rods. So you've got slotted screws, just loosen them. So loosen one, I got to get in the camera. Loosen the top one, loosen the next one down, and then loosen the bottom one, okay? Then what's going to happen are the butterflies are then going to all three of them are going to close, okay? Once they're closed, that's when you tighten that screw, okay? It makes a world of difference in the running ability, especially idling of engines. Well, whether it was Force, Chrysler, Johnson, Evinrude, Mercury, Mariner, huge difference. I know that even some guys with their Mercs, for example, they've got a rod that clips in place. But if you flip the rod over, then the throttle plates aren't aligned. And these guys will restart their engines and they just run like trash. And they think that they did something wrong outside of that rod. But kind of the same thing as what you're talking about there. So yeah, I loosen them off and then I set them that way, because your butterflies, they need to be closed. If the butterflies aren't closed, it's going to run lean, or that set of cylinders is going to run lean, because it's not going to be able to pull fuel off of the high speed or the main jet. It's just going to pull it off of the holes. If you look in the back of the carburetor at the top, where you kind of got just a little bit of a divot like this, where the butterfly is, that's where it pulls the air through, or sort of air and fuel through, in order to get those to idle properly. So that's where you need to go with that. Hope it answers your question. And timing, take a look at my static timing video that I've got. It's on a Mercury, but the process is the same. Yeah, time to talk winterizing. You're running out of time, especially up here in Canada. We are, well, today, this weekend, we're going to have a high of 8 degrees Celsius. And 0 for us is your 32 in the States. So it's starting to get colder out. It's usually consecutive days below 0, though, that damages stern drives. Unless it's, say, dropped to minus 30 or something overnight just out of the blue. But you usually have to have a few days under 0, where it doesn't warm up throughout the day. Why do I not own a boat? I liked doing that one because it brought back a lot of memories. Unfortunately, some of the memories weren't all that good, but yeah, it was. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, David. It was an interesting walk down memory lane. There were some other reasons too of why I don't own a boat, and they had to do with water sports. I'm not clumsy. I've played sports all my life, really good on my feet. But if you stick me on something, I'm not all that good. Whether it was a pedal bike, for example, riding just on the road, I'm fine. Put me on dirt trails, I'm in the bush. I know that on my couple trips out with kneeboarding, I ate a lot of water. That was scary for me. And we had I'll tell you guys a story. We went out to a lake here. It's a small lake, and it's called Blackstrap, and it's basically a reservoir. We had a scooter boat. Now, let me do I'll see if I can bring it up on the internet. Scooter boat. This would have been 1990s. Is it going to show it? No, it's not showing. But think of a personal watercraft, but larger and wider with an outboard motor on the back. So we'd stuck a 25 horsepower engine on it, and this thing probably did 35 to 40 miles an hour. It was pretty cool, this thing. Anyway, we rode at Blackstrap, and this thing doesn't weigh a lot. and we were pulling each other on knee boards, and it was pretty rough out there. It was pretty windy, and I think it was even raining at the time. And if you would cut too hard with the knee board, you would pull back on the boat. So once you pull back on the boat, you would get slack in the rope. So if you guys know where this is going. So as I started to slow down from the slack, the front of the board started going down. So when the rope finally caught, I just simply went like this, straight under the water. So I kick the knee board off. I come up to the surface. The knee board comes up, hits me in the face, and that was the end of water sports for this guy. Fishing. I enjoy going fishing. I just don't enjoy doing away with the fish in a negative way. I catch and release. I'm fine with that. That's perfectly fine. But I just can't be that guy that kills anything. I just can't do that. That's just not me. Not me. Not this guy. Can I turn $4,000 into $15,000? So I'm hoping that I can actually do better than that. Those engines that I spoke of earlier in the stream tonight, the 90 and the 115, I believe I've got those pre-sold. And the 60, I talked to a guy yesterday, and I think I've got that pre-sold. So the prices that I threw the guys is almost that 15 grand already. So I'm pretty pumped. I'm going to do some videos on that stuff. I'm going to try and keep the prices, well, not the price, the money that I've got to put into it as low as possible. We'll maybe keep a running tab on each engine so that we know what I'm putting into it, whether it's got bearings, pistons, rings, electrical. I don't know. I know that the 60 that I got to work on, I think it needs some work with the tilt. I think the starter might be an issue, so I might have to rebuild that. I saw the wires for the voltage regulator might be a little sus. The fact that I think there's hockey tape holding them together. So there's definitely that. So I know that some of the engines are going to be a little more expensive. I really hope though, and I haven't opened up the 90 and the 115, and my understanding is it's a broken ring. I honestly hope that the head isn't damaged. If the head's not damaged, easy peasy. If the head's damaged, I've got to replace the head, and everybody always wants this, right? No one's going to cut you a break. So hopefully I can get that taken care of. Oil changes, are they just a money grab? They are not a money grab. I was just kind of using a fancy title there to hopefully get some views, but it's recommended that you guys change your engine oils every year. The stern drive or the gear case, they can typically go a bit longer, but again, it's on a user basis, right? I know that, and I've heard from Mercury directly that the high performance gear lube has a 3-year kind of life, 3 years, right? Before it starts showing the same amount of damage as the gold stuff or the premium did in 1 year. So keep that in mind. That there's a lifespan of that oil as well, so you've got to change it, but it's not as often. Always check it for water. If it's still a bright green, it's still going to be working. Is your outboard engine duck season or rabbit season? So what I was trying to basically state there was Elmer Fudd would always have the skit with Daffy and Bugs about duck season and rabbit season. So rabbit season was going to be whatever boat you bought was good, and duck season was supposed to be every boat that you bought was bad, right? So they'd have this thing where duck season, rabbit season, duck season, and then Elmer Fudd would shoot Daffy. And that's kind of what I was basing that video on. I don't know if anyone caught it, but that's kind of a goofy mood I was in that day. The father passed away and neglected and gave his neglected boat to his kids. That's a true story, and I honestly wished that the video did better. What we were trying to do with that video was like a real life documentary type show that you would see on TV, where they fix up the cars and they sell them and things like that. That's what we were trying to do with that. And I'm looking here, and it's a shame it only got that we did a lot of different segments of it, but the first one I popped up there, granted it was 32 minutes long, but it only saw 817 views, which was kind of upsetting, but it is what it is. It was a lot of work. We enjoyed doing it. It was a lot of editing time. I look at things now and probably think, maybe I should have edited it a bit different, because I have rewatched them, and I guess that the passage of time, you start to see things a bit different, and it's like, I guess, when you're in kindergarten and you thought you're drawing so well, and you go back years later and you look at it and go, what's this mess? But all in all, it's definitely a good video, and like I said, I wish more people had watched it, because it is a true story, and we did what we wanted to do, but maybe just the editing wasn't quite right. I talked to my son about it a bit today, about what, should just take it down and then redo it, re-edit it better, and then re-release it. But I don't know. It's a lot of work, and you're always rolling your dice when it comes to YouTube with who's going to watch and so on and so forth. So it's tough. It's tough. Are we in trouble? Nothing is selling and there's nothing to fix. So by selling, I didn't mean myself. What I meant was the larger dealers weren't selling product, and I thought I made that known in the video, until I got one of the comments basically telling me that my yard was a complete mess, and that's maybe why I wasn't selling anything. But dude, I wasn't talking about myself. I was talking about the big guys. The big guys aren't selling stuff because they want too much money. Oh, which reminds me, the burnt boat. This is sad. This is sad, and this is upsetting. He didn't have enough insurance on that boat. He did not. So he bought it in 2021. He paid his premiums for a certain amount on the boat for that particular time. He insured it for what he bought it for. In the meantime, tariffs came on, aluminum went up in price, boats went up in price. So he basically told me the other day he got 50 cents on the dollar for that boat, and he's got to replace it now himself. So if the boat's 20 grand, he's got to come up with $10,000 now in order to get back on the water. I'll see what I can do for him with regards to the work that I still have to do, because I took his engine off and I've got to put his engine back on, which reminds me, I did a video yesterday, I think it was, talking about the boat that was left out front, and we got a call from the insurance company stating that on Monday they're sending a flatbed and they're picking it up. It's not going to be my problem. They tried to make it my problem. Like, why? I don't understand it. Like, it's not mine. The agreement was follow through with it. But yeah, I guess, I don't know. Their idea was, you take care of it and we'll send you some money. And my whole thing was, no, you take care of it and I'll just leave it sit there. So I had Linda call up the owner today, and then the owner, I guess, called up the insurance company and said, hey, this is the deal. This is what we worked out. Go pick up your engine, or your boat. I do have the engine sitting in the shop, though. I haven't put the new hood on it. New hood's staying in a box until it's ready to go. I don't want the hood to get scratched. Oh, I forgot to mention, one of my videos I talked about the hood, and people were to guess, and some people took really good guesses, $1,000, $2,000, $2,300. That hood, Canadian, $3,800. It is. So what I might do to help the guy out is, I think the way his insurance worked is he was given a lump sum of money. And what I might do is give him a break on the hood. I might do that for him to help him out. So, I feel bad for the guy. It wasn't even his fire. It was his friend's fire in the garage that took that thing out. Yeah. I do know that Don made out pretty good with his. Don lucked out. He had different kind of insurance. Just did it a different way. So the boat that he bought and the engine that we put on for it the other day, he's good. Don made out well. That was there was a boat that I showed in one of my videos, and it was just completely and utterly destroyed from fire. That was Don's. Don watches the channel, so... Oh, hi, Don. The reason that the Johnson failed in the fraud video. I believe what I came down to, that one actually got some pretty good views. We'll talk a little bit about it, not a lot, but we'll talk some about it. The reason that Johnson failed, I believe there was water intrusion getting in through the exhaust side, which is really common with those. So if anyone owns a cross-flow engine, Johnson or Evinrude, one of the telltale signs, or some of the telltale signs, is you shut the engine off when it's hot, it doesn't want to restart. When you idle down or stop quickly, there's sometimes it stalls. It starts to get hard to start even when you haven't been running it. Like that's further down the line. That's one of the end things with that. And also the back plate, usually down on the port side corner, you'll see black exhaust coming out there. If black exhaust is coming out there, most times it means that the gaskets are blown on the inside and water's being drawn into number 4. And that's got to be taken care of. If it's not taken care of, the engine's going to be wrecked. Not much for chat. Not much for chatters. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I can't believe these shops are doing this. So, that video was about a fella out of town that was advertising, I think, on Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace, that he was doing repairs on outboard motors and stern drives for people. And we initially caught wind of this kind of middle of the year, I guess. Like before this stuff started showing up at the shop, we knew that some work was being done somewhere, and it wasn't very good work that was being done. Because we'd have people come in and say, yeah, I just had some work done and the engine's not running all that well. Can you take a look at it? But we didn't hear any of the backstory. Not until that fraud video was released, that one, and there was I think that was the second guy. The first guy had a 175, and that was the one with the carburetor had the jets that they were gone. And I'm happy to say we have the jets in, and it's running fine. So he's actually got out at the end of the season here, and he's been able to use it, and it's worked well for him. So, yay. It took a bit, but we got him back on the water, and he's happy about it. Yeah, I told the customer to never come back video. That was a true story. I did see in comments that some people didn't believe it. I got 147 comments on that. I don't even know if I think I read them all. But yeah, some people were basically saying because I didn't have the engine there at the time that the video was made, that it never existed, it never happened. It happened. And I'll be honest, it was really upsetting for me. And that's why I shot that video. It's something that I hope I never have to do again, is have someone not come back. Yeah, it was just pushed me the wrong way. And you know, I probably would have been fine had I gone up in the first place and handled it myself. But Linda was up front. That's our lady. Obviously, it's Linda. That's our counter girl, and she came back, and he'd already torn into her about it, and she was pretty upset. So I think I kind of went up front with my hackles up, because I didn't even try to deflect. I didn't. It was just, you know what, dude, if this is the way you're going to be, just take your engine and go. Marine insurance companies aren't fair. Well, we've definitely established that. That was another video. It did okay. The scenario is this, and this is very unfair to people. Up here in Canada, the way the insurance works is, let's say, for example, you've got $4,000 worth of damage to your drive or your gear case. So if we can find a used one, fantastic. You know, they're happy and friendly to help you that way, because then they save some money. But if there's $4,000 in damage, now hear me out. This is the way this works. 100%. $4,000 in damage. Okay. If the boat is over 10 years old, I think it's 40% depreciation. If it's over 15 years, it's 15% depreciation, or 50% depreciation. So if we're working with the 50, we'll take that $4,000 and cut it down to $2,000 that they're going to give you. Okay. Then they're going to raise your premiums for 3 years probably $300-400 in premiums. So that's $1,200 off this $2,000 now. So here's your $800. And if your deductible is $750, you just made $50. I think the math is right. I think that's where I was going. $50. So they've got it set up now so that if you've got $4,000 damage, like a minimum of $4,000 damage, it's pointless to use your insurance. It could even cost you money in the end with the premiums in the end. Depends how much they raise it. It's so unfair, and people are going out and they're still buying insurance on their boats. And Ken, one of my loyal followers, he's kind of disgusted with insurance, and he won't even buy insurance anymore because by the time you pay the premiums and you add in the deductible, if it was $4,000 and you made it for 3 or 4 years, well, you've paid off the drive anyway, so why bother, right? I think that's kind of a good way to look at it. Premium fuel for outboard engines. This drew some conversation. It didn't get a lot of comments, but I know for a fact that premium fuel is harder to burn. That's the idea of premium fuel, right? So you use it in a car that has a supercharger, you use it in a vehicle that has a turbocharger. It's so that the gasoline doesn't ignite from the pressure inside and the heat inside the combustion chamber. So it's harder to burn. So one of the comments was, I put premium fuel in my my inboard engine and it runs better, and I've done it ever since. Blah blah blah. You know, it is what it is, right? I get it, but to me, it's one of those butt dynos, BUTT dynos, where you make a change on your car, and it's supposed to make it faster, and your bum tells you it does. You know, it's just one of those things that I never understand about people. Maybe he just said it just to chime in, but there's even cases where if your engine can actually run worse on premium fuel than it can run on regular. And like I said, a weak ignition system, poor compression, things like that would actually make it run even worse. I don't know, just some people. People are installing oil and water separator filters incorrectly. So, my son and I, and this was kind of the gist of the video. When people come in to get oil changes, or people come in to get their water separator filters pulled off, there's no need, and there's 100% no need to really, really, really tighten them. Like almost, it's almost to the point where you're kind of laughing to yourself because you've got a foot up against the wrench, you're bracing your body or your back against something, and you're pushing that hard to loosen that filter off. Crazy. And the reason that this video came about was a water separator filter that someone had installed in a Yamaha outboard, and it was down inside a compartment. So it was tucked down inside. And my son, he comes out and says, Dad, I can't get this off. You know, what are we going to do? The guy wants us to change it. It's the only reason it's here. So I had to get a 2-foot breaker bar to get that filter off. Now, someone had mentioned in comments, and it was a really good comment, that rust and corrosion over time can make them stay on. Yes, I agree. But it's few and far between that water separators that I've pulled off in a lifetime that have been rusty. So I think it's just maybe people's ignorance that they believe that it's got to be 3 turns on. I don't know. Whatever they do. They don't read it because it says 3/4 of a turn after it's touched is plenty. Outboard maintenance isn't really needed. That was kind of a different video that I did. It was, you know, kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, because there's always that guy that's out at the lake, or a buddy, or the guy down the block, or whatever, that says, I haven't done anything like that. My engine runs fine every year. I never winterize. I don't change the oil. I've got the same spark plugs in. I've seen the same spark plugs that have been in for 25 years and there's nothing left of them. I'm amazed that the engines run. But a story I have for that, and this goes back probably 20 years, was a guy came in and he was all up in me. Oh, it's the first time it's had maintenance. I've never had to touch it. It's the original water pump. It's the original spark plugs. He's going on, and he's strutting around the shop like a peacock. He's pretty pumped. He's happy with himself. Anyway, back at that time, $1,000 was a lot of money. So we did his water pump. We did his spark plugs. We gear oil. We did the carburetors. We did all of this stuff on it. Had him $1,000 bills, and the freaking guy damn near dropped dead. And we may have been able to offset a lot of that through the years had the guy maybe done his maintenance, so it wouldn't have been $1,000. But it was just one of those things where this isn't my fault that you're being charged this. This is totally your fault. It's not that, and I will rarely look at someone's engine with the intent of finding something wrong that I'm not supposed to be looking at. There's times where you'll glance at something and go, oh, wait, there's this, and you bring it to the customer's attention, and he gets final word on repairing it, right? That's how I work it. I won't go in there and say, yeah, you need this, you need this, you need this, you need this. When the customer brings his boat in and he wants a certain thing done to the boat, apart from a hole blown in the side, that's what I do for him and fix it. It's then ran, and then if it doesn't run right, that's when we have a further discussion about what's going on. What else do we got here? E-Techs. So I get E-Tech calls, and I'm not an E-Tech guy. And I even went out and we purchased the software for E-Techs, but I think it only works up until 2012. And it's not powerful enough. I worked on an E-Tech at the shop, okay, and I diagnosed it as an injector wasn't working. I had to pull the boat over to another dealership myself so that they could assign a brand new injector to the engine so that I could fix it for the guy. Because my software didn't allow me to do that. I just used MEDS, MEDS, I think is what I used. It's an aftermarket version of the software. It's good for what it does, I guess, but it's just not, it's not right? And like I said, it only does up until 2012, and then I think after that they had their second generation of the engines came out, and we get calls about that. Can we fix it, because they don't want to go up the block. Oh my God, a guy called today, and he's got a G2, so he's got the second generation, and he wanted a gear case. So we called down to the States to Stern Drive Engineering to see if they actually have them, and unfortunately they don't build them. But Bombardier wants $7,800 Canadian to replace that gear case now. Oh, it's insane. We put we put Stern Drive Engineering ones on for anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000, right? By the time you get shipping and the exchange on the dollar and the install and gear oil and all of these things, it's relatively inexpensive. It comes with a 3-year warranty. I'll explain the warranty. Check this out. We put a drive onto a Mercruiser, and this was one of the first ones we ever get. We put it on there, and the guy leaves with his boat. And then the next couple days later, or Monday or Tuesday or whatever after the weekend, he calls us up and he's just upset. He says, "Guys, I did something to my gear case. I've ruined it. He says. He says, "Well, bring it by. We'll take a look. We've got a warranty. It's got 3 years on it, and we'll see what happens." So as it turns out, he brings his boat back, and the strap on the front of the boat had broken, and he didn't have the tie downs on the back to hold the boat. So the boat slid backwards and then went like this. And he dragged his gear case along the highway. I don't know how far. It might have been 100 feet. I don't know, whatever. But he completely took out the bottom end. The skeg was gone. There was oil all over. There was a hole in the bullet. So he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Let's call Stern Drive Engineering and see what they have to say." So we called them up and they said, "Take it off, box it up, send it in. We'll send you a new one." That's their warranty. It had nothing to do with oil failure. It had nothing to do with parts failing. It had nothing to do with anything to do with the marine side of things. They stood behind that gear case and they replaced it. He just had to pay for our time to take the old one off and put the new one on and shipping. So for any of you out there that are interested in Stern Drive Engineering and that, I've got a lot of really good happy endings with that. The only thing that I would complain about is the paint. So if you're gonna buy one and it's a Merc, I think they're all black. I think they all are black now. So it doesn't matter what brand or what version you buy. So whether it's Yamaha, Mercury, or Johnson, I think they all come black. Pick up some Mercury black enamel paint. I believe it's enamel, Phantom Black. Keep it with you. When you chip the paint, dust it up with some paint and repaint it. That'll work best. Where are we here? Oh, what did I do? Oh, whoops. Oh, I lost my chat. Hang on. Did I go the wrong way? I got lost down here. Where did I go? Content. Oh, well, that's no good. I lost my chat. Oh, well. There wasn't much going on with the chat anyway. We'll talk about that later. Or fix that later. Where are we here? Content. Where was I? Shorts. Some of the shorts I've done have been quite successful. Oh, the Mercury Verado lost power, so that was check this first. So I think it's a kind of a design flaw. I never said that, but the way they've done, instead of running a tube all the way down and just connecting it, they've got rubber pieces, rubber tubing in between the fiberglass or the plastic tubing, whatever they've made. Maybe it's aluminum, I don't know. Whatever they've made the intakes out of, where the supercharger blows the air through. And what happens over time, or what I believe is happening over time, is the rubber will start to balloon up a little bit in the middle between the two, between a gear clamp and the other clamp, the Oederker clamp. Now, the gear clamp, which is on the back side of the air side, so that it's not being affected by the air being pushed through, but the Oederker clamp is. And I think what happens is, over time, as that rubber does this, it stretches the Oederker clamp, blows the Oederker clamp off, and then your supercharger drops its pressure, is what happens. So that's what that one was about. So I've seen that a few times where that the clamps have come off. Basically, you put the clamp back on and the guy's good to go. Oh, there I am. I'll just have to mute this, though. Found myself. Did I mute? There we go. Okay. Sorry, but it's not a scalded cat. It's your trailer bearings. So he pulls up to the yard, and we could hear him pull up to the yard from inside the building. It was that bad. It was just squealing. So that was the trailer bearings that had failed. And then we had to go out and we had to hook our tractor onto it and pull it into the yard. And the wheel was just doing this the whole time, and it was tilted over, and it was just horrible. Horrible damage that he did. So I ended up being able to put a new hub on and bearings, and he was given strict instructions: take this someplace and get a new axle. So the work that I did held up long enough. He was able to get to another place, and they're replacing his axle. They get like a 1,200 pound axle in that thing when he should have had a 3,500. Like, why would they put a 1,200 pound axle under a stern drive? Save money? I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Oh, there was where's that? The short that I got 210,000 views. So that's a record for me. 210,000. Appreciate you guys. Thumbs up. Thank you. Sorry it's not your starter. So that boat showed up, and when I went to turn it over, the starter would move the flywheel a little bit, and it would just simply stop and then kick back a little bit. So every time I would hit the starter, it would do the same thing. So what I did was I grabbed the flywheel and thought, okay, I'm going to check and see if I can spin the flywheel, because maybe his starter was buggered. As it turns out, and what we found out later, it wasn't the starter that was buggered. The starter was fine. It turns out that number 2 cylinder had detonated. So that's what you guys saw in that short, where it was all kind of chipped out all around the piston. That was basically either the timing is too far advanced, the engine maybe ran a little bit lean. For some reason, heat was being created around the outside edge. It can even happen on the exhaust side and then just get hot enough that it continues around. And that's what ended happening with that. Or I think as one guy had suggested, maybe there was an airlock up in the top part of that cylinder and it just got too hot. So instead of the air fuel mixture burning, as soon as the air fuel mixture would hit that cylinder, because the cylinder was so hot, it would just ignite. Maybe that should have been running premium. Yeah, probably would have been the difference right there, premium. Yeah, that Lund boat that burnt, turned out that the engine was salvageable, and like I said, I've got that sitting at the shop. What else do we got here? Oh, the outro bloopers. So I thought that's when you go to my homepage, there's a video up there, and that one shows the bloopers from, was it a 7-part series, 7 or 8-part series that we had, or 6, 7, 8-part series that we had. And watch it. It's actually funny, and it's pretty entertaining. It's the camera was still rolling and the boys were being the boys. It's how they interacted when it's basically how we all interact when we're at the shop. We like to have fun and goof around and so on and so forth. That's a good video to watch. I enjoyed putting that one together, and kind of giggling at the video at the end there. Whole bunch of dog videos. Oh, how much have outboard prices increased since 1996? So back when we used to sell Force engines, yes, I know, I was a Force tech, thank you. We sold 120 horsepower engines for around $6,000. $6,000 was 120 horsepower. Now, you can barely buy a 9.9, yet alone a specific version of a 20 for $6,000. It's gone crazy. It's literally gone crazy. I feel bad that anyone that's trying to get into the market and get into boating, if you can't afford to buy something used, you can't get in. You just can't. What do we got here? Oh, pardon me. Just get tired. At the end of the day, I wake up around 5, lay in bed, play on my phone for a bit, and then I get off to work. Inline 6 water intrusion. I've touched on a few videos with this. One short did quite well. And it's, yes, you can save an engine that had water intrusion. It's a 90 horsepower inline 6 Mariner. I don't fix those anymore. And the reason that I don't fix them anymore is it's not a reliable fix. You can't guarantee that it's going to work. So I had one in earlier this year, and I told the customer, I said, look, this is what's going on. I know what you need to do. I'm just not going to do it. So I sent him up the block. So anyway, it turns out that he goes up the block and he gets it fixed. Well, it ends up at my place a few weeks later, or months later, whatever it was, I don't remember, and it's not working. And it's got the same symptoms. There's water coming down through the bottom, and it's getting out. And you know, it's why I don't fix it. It's a long piece of aluminum. It's 18 inches long or whatever it is. It warps, it cracks, it breaks, and it just doesn't seal anymore. And water just continues to get in. So you end up charging the guy $1,000 or $1,200 to do this repair, and it doesn't hold. I don't want to tie my name onto that. Chris, can reed valves be bad on a two-stroke even though they appear good? Okay, so our major go-to when it comes to looking at reeds is this. Pop them out, hold them up to the light, and see if you can see light through them. Okay? So if you see light through them, then they're starting to lose their tensile strength, and they're not closing anyway. They've lost their flexibility. They won't snap back. Okay? Now, on the other hand, if I can't take them out of the engine, okay, so if we take the carburetors off and we want to have a quick boo at the reeds, I'll stick my finger in and I press on them. What I'm listening for is a tick. Just like on one of my videos, I show that when we're testing the needle and seat in a carburetor, if we know the needle's going to seat, is if we lift the float and it pulls the needle up and we hear a tick. Right? So that's the needle sticking and then letting loose. The reeds will do the same thing. If the reeds are closing properly and we touch on them, okay, you can feel it and you can hear a little tick. Now, another way that you can tell that they're bad, though, is if you're going to run the engine, take the front baffle off, speed the engine up, and look for fuel spraying out. Now, hear me out. A little bit of fuel is kind of normal in certain circumstances. As an engine starts to wear, we're going to get some fuel that's going to come out. That's why we have the big baffle on the front to catch any fuel or oil that gets sprayed out outside of tilting the engine up and having the oil and fuel come out that way. So sometimes we get a little bit. So if you've got a bad reed or you've got a broken reed, number one is when you're running the engine, it sounds different. It's got kind of a cracking noise to it as it runs, and also fuel squirting out, or I don't know if the term is correct, homogenized oil. So the oil will start to foam and it'll be sitting inside the carburetor and start to come out that way. So that's and it'll be kind of a white froth. That's another indication that your reeds aren't working the way they're supposed to. But I've done several sets of reeds in a lifetime. Again, keep in mind, I'm in Canada. I'm in the middle of Saskatchewan. If a guy gets 10 hours on his boat every year, he's probably doing really well. I would imagine that out on the coast where people are getting a lot of hours on their boats, they're probably seeing a lot more reed failures. I could count on my hand an Optimax. I've seen a reed failure there. I've seen a reed failure on a 40 horsepower Mariner. They have the round pedals that got drawn through, and a Johnson, because we physically couldn't get the Johnson to idle low enough, and it was pushing the fuel out of several of the carburetors. So once we got those reeds looked after, it was good to go. Now, another thing though, and I want you to keep in mind, is this. You can have a similar running engine with bad reeds if you've got wear in your cylinders. Now, let me elaborate on this. As the piston is moving up and down in the cylinders, if we've got wear on the cylinder walls close to where the intake is or the exhaust is, the air-fuel mixture as it burns escapes past the rings and exits out the intake. Okay, so now we've got some conflicting things that are going on the intake. Number one, it's trying to stay closed, and number one, it's trying to be open, and we're getting air-fuel mixture that's physically going back into the intake and limits the amount of air-fuel that then comes in on the next charge. I think under the right circumstances, we could actually see back pressure inside the intake, which might lead us to believe that it's bad reeds. Might be a stretch, but I think that's accurate. So when we're scoping engines at work, and did I make a video? Yeah, I made a video about this the other day. I was scoping an engine at work, and it was a 140 Johnson, and the customer had come in, and he had told me that it doesn't idle. He can't get it to start, and it needed some work done to the ignition. So I said, well, before we get too far ahead, let's scope the engine and look at the condition of the cylinders. And when I looked at the condition of the cylinders, someone had used an abrasive cloth, Scotch-Brite or sandpaper inside, and they scuffed it all up. So I made him aware of this because I can't then see the wear that's in the cylinders if someone does that. Now, in a situation, Chris, where you're talking about where you might be the reeds, or it could be what I'm talking about, if you pop the head off or you find a way that you can scope the cylinders, okay, you'll be looking for varnish or what's left of varnishing, okay? So that would be kind of an orange glow on the walls that looks like it's embedded into the metal. Or you'll look for scoring, so that's easy enough to see. Or you're going to look for a mirror finish in a couple different areas of the cylinder. So if the engine's in great shape, the cross-hatching is always there. So the cross-hatching is there to hold the oil so that the rings can slide back and forth on a thin layer of oil. But once that cross-hatching is gone, we're going to start getting piston slap. The piston is going to move side to side. So when those engines are cold, you can hear clack, 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 clack as they start to warm up. And then once they warm up, the sound almost goes away. But if you're listening for it, you can hear it. I've heard Optimax engines come in and it sounds like a train going past. It's clack, 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 clack. And it's like, dude, your engine shot. Oh, no, it's an Optimax. They go forever. No, they don't. They don't. I hope that answers your question, Chris. Where are you here? So, this was kind of a neat video I did. Were long pieces of aluminum really a good idea? So 105 Chrysler. So they were notorious for having really long pieces of aluminum for the exhaust side, just like the inline sixes for Mercury, but the Mercuries seem to hold up better. We would always get these long pieces of aluminum where normally I think it was the heads that would cause the most issues, and they would warp and overheat. And at that time when we were getting a lot of Chryslers in, or even Force engines for that matter, and it was happening to those, we would have to clean those heads up by rubbing them back and forth on a table that had a sandpaper cloth on it to get them smooth again, and then bolt them back together, and then they're fine. Which reminds me, I just did that on that 15 horsepower fake Yamaha. It was so bad. I was probably 15-20 minutes of planing that head back and forth before it even got down to where the head gasket was supposed to seal. So maybe that's why they send that second head gasket along, because the tolerance of the head was really bad. I did some guessing as to why I thought that engine had failed. Maybe it was due to overheating from the water pump or so on and so forth. But come to think of it now, after thinking back, it was probably just a quality issue on the head, because like I said, I had to take a lot of material off that head in order to get that where that steel ring is to touch back up against there so that I could torque it down properly. Or maybe they didn't torque it down properly either. You never know. Fish finder faux pas. So that was, when was that? Back in 2024. Guy came in and he had his fish finder transducer on backwards. So he was reading everything behind him rather than in front of him. So he was wondering why, my alarm doesn't go off until I go over top of all the stuff and blah, blah, blah. We'll fix that for you right away. So it was just a matter of twisting it around so it was facing the right way. I thought that was funny. That was cute. Yeah. Oh, what else do we got here? What else? What else? I got some really old videos, guys. Really old. Back, what was it, 2011, I think, is when I started doing some videos. I used to do them with a JVC camera that had a disc in it. That's how far back I go on YouTube, guys. And then I stopped. I lost my monetization and lost my wanting desire to do videos. But then I picked that back up. So as you guys can see, I've got hundreds of videos up now. It was cool because when I ran my forum and was running YouTube and doing the videos at the same time, I was able to say this. Based on the amount of views that I had on YouTube, I could confidently and positively say that I'd helped millions of people get back on the water because I had millions of views years ago on my YouTube videos. So it was yeah, I know. Give me a trophy. But yeah, it was kind of a cool thing. Where do we go here? Oh, a guy brought an engine in this year, and what the hell? It was seized up, but he didn't even know it was seized up. He said he got it out to the lake and it wouldn't start. And this was, when did I make the video? I made the video. I'm getting somewhere with this. I made the video back at the beginning of May. No, maybe that's wrong. Anyway, I think it was around May that I made this video. So the engine was rusted solid. I opened it up hoping we could save it, because if it was just the pistons that were kind of locked in place and the crank and rods would be okay, we could save this thing. But anyway, we couldn't. But the reason I'm bringing this up is we've been on the phone with him ever since to come and pick up his boat and his parts. So he comes in one day, and unfortunately I wasn't there, and he picked up his boat. And now he's got 3 boxes of parts sitting in my work area that he's got to come get. So I'm thinking that if I don't get a hold of them, I think they might go in the red bin. I think I'm going to be that guy. Okay, Chris, I drain my lower unit at the end of every boating season. You think it's overkill? You need to, Chris, you need to refill it as well. So there's nothing wrong with maintenance. Maintenance is cheap insurance to make sure that it's always going to work. And by starting off with new gear oil, provided you don't forget to put it back in, you're always going to have the assurance that your gears and bearings are protected. Thumbs up. Is automotive gear lube compatible with marine lower units? Well, the weight of it is. If it's SAE 90, the weight is fine, but they do have additives inside the gear oil for the marine industry, emulsifiers and tactifiers. And what it's designed to do is it's designed to stick to the gears, and it's also designed to inhibit the water from making contact with the gears or the bearings. That's my understanding and what I was told from Mercury with regards to those. I also know that when the high performance has changed, and hear me out. When high performance first came out, when we would pour high performance and it was windy, it would come out off like strands. The oil was sticky. It wouldn't just kind of blow. It would come off in strands, and it doesn't do that anymore. It just comes out like normal gear oil. So I'm sure that somewhere down the line they made a running change on the gear oil. They also made a running change on Optimax oil, as I made a video about it, about how every once in a while, if you've got an oil injected engine, you need to change or draw the oil out of the tank and put new stuff in. Case in point, an Optimax came in and it congealed at the bottom, and it wasn't able to push the oil up from the main tank to his remote tank on the engine. So his alarm kept going off because it wouldn't fill it. So I took his tank all apart, and sure enough, there was a thick layer of goo right across the bottom, and it was also stuck in the screen at the bottom where the strainer at the bottom, so it couldn't suck the oil through. So that's another thing that you want to change every once in a while and stay on top of is your two-stroke oil in an oil-injected engine. If you've got an oil-injected engine that has a container on the engine, same thing. And I believe my understanding, and someone commented on it after I put the video up, that one of the reasons that they changed the dye in Optimax oil was the congealing properties of the dye. And I was also told that, and this was my take on it, that the dye was taken out to save money. Because it's pointless to have all the colors in the oil. If it comes in the bottle, it comes in the bottle. It's written on the bottle. You should know what you got. So, I got a question the other day on Boss Audio. So I've done some installs of these round head units. I've put one into a stern drive and I put one into a pontoon boat. And the pontoon boat belongs to Randy. He's a follower on the channel. So, hey, Randy, if you see this, his pontoon boat was just dropped off, and as far as I know, everything went well. I did the interior on it this year. I did I think I did some videos on that. I did the interior. I put a live well into it. I put a Boss, I think it was a Boss stereo, or it might have been another brand that they're all kind of the same that I put in there. But the head unit is a head unit. It's okay. It's round. It's got some lights on it. It doesn't got GPS or anything like that. It's made just to play music with, right? Or listen to podcasts or whatever. But the biggest improvement I can tell anybody when it comes to audio in your boat is go out and buy a more expensive brand of speakers. Nathan, thank you. Thank you very much. Buy some quality speakers. We went with 6x9s, and 6x9s throw out more bass. They were two-way 6x9s, so it's got highs and lows. And it sounded really good, really good. I know that a lot of boats come with 6-inch round ones, and you just don't get the sound. That it's like listening to door speakers in your car. They're going to be fairly mid-range-ish with some highs added in. But yeah, if you can get a hold of 6x9s, or if you can get a subwoofer and put it in there somewhere, oh yeah. But you really need that on the water? Yeah, you do. What'd be really cool is if instead of listening to my Google Home thing at work, if some guy just came in with a Kick-R stereo and I could just play my music on there while I worked, that'd be better. That'd be better. Yeah, I agree. Anyway, yeah, because the question was, well, how did it end up sounding? And the head unit, I think, is fine for the amount of money. $70, $80 is what it is, or you can buy the kits with the speakers for $200. But like I said, swap the speakers out. Definitely swap the speakers out. If there's room, add more speakers. I had a guy show up this year. He has a wakeboard boat, or not a wakeboard boat. Let me back up. He's got like a Bayliner or something with a tower on it. And he says to me, I need to make my stereo louder. He says, do you think it's the speakers? And I said, well, yes and no. It's the speakers, or it's the amount of power you're running to your speakers. And I said, but why do you want it louder? And he says, because when the kids are water skiing, they can't hear the music. We can hear it fine in the boat, but they can't hear it when they're out on the water. And I'm thinking, gee whiz, well, it's probably still going to be really loud, isn't it? So maybe next year he's going to bring it in. He talked about it, and maybe we'll be getting a hold of the local audiophile guys here and setting up something fantastic for this guy and throw it on there for him and see if we can blow his kids right out of the water. Maybe. We'll see. Okay. No comparing 6x9 to round ones. Mini subs they are. Yep. Oh, agreed. So and Nathan, I had a Camaro when I was a kid. And the Camaro with that great big dash in the back and that great big trunk. We couldn't afford subs. Subs weren't, they were available, just no one ran them. Everyone at that time was running 6x9s, or they put 6x9s in speaker boxes, and get this, they put them on the dash behind them, just in case you get in a car accident. Anyway, that was that. But yes, I like the 6x9s. I've ran, my house, I've got 12s, I've got 10s. because we got a stair. Sorry, not a stair. We've got a movie room downstairs that we built, and so we got a projector and we got it all set up. Yeah, so we don't even have to go to the movies anymore. Netflix and stuff like that plays some pretty good stuff, so we watch it on there. Chris, what is your opinion on Force engines? Are they as bad as everyone says? You know, Chris, yes. Yes, I know about Force engines. In fact, I was a Force tech for a lot of years. I was in fact in Saskatchewan. I was the only Force tech, and my bragging rights of being a Force tech was going to Merc school and then just handing me them just handing me my certificate and saying, you're the only one, here you go. You don't even have to take the test. Because at that time, there wasn't anything new coming out with Force. Now, if we talk about Force, we have to include Chrysler. Okay, so Chrysler was bought by U.S. Marine. U.S. Marine turned Force, the Chrysler engines into Force. They put them onto their boats so they had an inexpensive boat package that they could sell people. Now, Chrysler in its time with its large displacement engine, barring the electrical issues they had and silly things that they did throughout the years, it was a very powerful engine at that time. Large bore displacement, big pistons. I liked them. I liked Chrysler engines at that time. I often thought that if I was to get a boat years ago, I would get a 115 or a 140. That was what I wanted until later on when they started making changes and trying to get into electronic ignition outside of their distributors. The distributors were bad enough, right? We're relying on a belt, or we're relying on points, or we're relying on a preamp, or we're relying on if you didn't have a deep cycle battery, you'd blow the power pack out. There were quirks, silly quirks that through the years that everyone kind of went through. But when they switched over to Prestolite ignition system, so that's those blue power packs and the blue coils. They actually had black power packs with black coils. It was a complete and utter disaster, and it sank the engine. It wasn't bad enough that U.S. Marine said, hey, we want an inexpensive engine. It's what they did with it, or not is exactly what they did with it. Chrysler had already transitioned over to that ignition system. That ignition system was the foot stepping on the bug of what was Chrysler. At that point, it was done. Damage had been done to the engine. Like mechanically, I liked the drives. I liked the idea of the large displacement, the inline. It wasn't like a tall Mercury. It was easy to work on, simple to work on. It was basic. But another thing was, it was still 1950. You know what I'm saying? Here it is. We saw Force engines up until, the mid-90s, late 90s, 1998, I think was their last run. And nothing had really changed on the block. Mercury had put different pistons in. They moved the rings to different areas on the pistons. They ported them a little bit different. They said it was 120. It wasn't. I know why they did that. We can get into that in a video at some other time. They downplayed the horsepower that Mercury... they downplayed the Mercury horsepower, and then they increased the horsepower on the Force engine so that Mercury at 115 looked better than a Force at 120 is what they essentially did. That, again, another crush the bug kind of thing. It just pushed it down even further. Now, when those engines come in, I talk to the customer about the reliability of the engine and the cost of the parts and so on and so forth. I want to say that for their time, the engine was okay. After Mercury even got finished with it, they put their own ignition systems on it, like the power packs, the coils, the stators. They swapped out different carburetors. They put their version of carburetors on. They swapped out the gear case. So the only thing left was the 1950s power head. But they choked it off. They simply choked it off. At that point in 1998, the idea was we'll have a Force engine that's not oil injected. We'll have a Mercury Mariner that is oil injected. And that was going to be the difference between the two. But there was so much damage that had been done to the Force name by that point, they had to pull the pin. They simply just had to pull the pin. You could get oil injection on a Force engine with auto blend, and we're at service school and they're saying, hey, if a guy comes in an auto blend, pull it out of their boat for him, you're doing them a favor. So it's what we did. Was Force engine a good engine? I want to say that back in the 70s, when all the technology was comparable, that Chrysler was a decent engine. I'll say that. I'll say that into the early 80s, when Chrysler was still running their obsolete distributor system, and the other companies had gone to ADI, or alternator driven ignition system, by this time, that they had started pulling away. Chrysler just dragged their boots for too long and then made a very rash decision by involving Prestolite. The rest is history. They did it to themselves. Isn't Force OEM out of business? Force no longer exists. We can still get parts for them, aftermarket, and gear cases on later models, the ones that Mercury made. When someone comes in again with a Force engine, again, I try to talk them out of repair. The parts are really expensive. The parts are not going to be handled for long, and given the ignition system when we're on the old ones, they're just gonna go down again. It's inevitable. It doesn't matter if CDI was making the part or Prestolite was making the part or whoever was making the part. It just wasn't a reliable product. It just wasn't. Do you like the Tower of Power? I had an 86 115. Thing was powerful on my Carlson. So when I first started service school, the Tower of Power was still in circulation. They still taught us the Tower of Power. So that was one of the first engines that I ever tore down at service school and got to reassemble and so on and so forth. We never actually got that engine to run at service school. It was just we got to work on them. So at that time, they'd had, this was around the period where the 150 was gone. I think the 140 was gone, and 115 was the largest engine that they made. So they detuned the 140 down to 115, or maybe it only made 115 to begin with. I don't know, but that's what we got to work on. Now, it had quirks. It did. I find that the Tower of Power is, unless it's in really good shape, is very hard to start. They're hard on starters. They've got a very simple, basic, useless, horrible excuse for carburetor on them. Honestly, if they could have figured something else out other than what they did with that side draft or back draft or whatever carburetor that they put on, it piddles out fuel all the time. The needle and seat always goes out of whack. The float can get stuck on the needle and seat or on the flanges at the top. It's bad. And whenever you tilt the engine up, unless you set the carburetors lean, it dumps fuel everywhere. So hard starting. They did switch over to a primer. I have a question. Maybe you guys can tell me this. Why on earth would you take 3 carburetors and only put choke butterflies on 2 of them and not on the bottom one? What were they thinking? Like, was it just too far for the solenoid to pull the plastic rod up to throw another choke on? I can never understand that. So you start the engine and it's running on 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're waiting for the next 2 cylinders to cut in. Well, what's happening with those next 2 cylinders down at the bottom that aren't pulling in adequate fuel? Well, they're probably scraping, would be what I would be thinking. Later on, they added in the primer, which helped somewhat, I guess, but again, just not great starting engines. We still get them in. With tired starters, still with all the same problems. I get out to the lake, it doesn't start. They had the intake, so the exhaust on the side, not the outside exhaust covers, but there's a cover on the inside that water circulates through, that blows through, and that was something earlier in the stream that I talked about that I don't repair anymore because it's just not a legitimate fix. It's putting a Band-Aid on it. they're breaking for a reason. And if you wanna, if anyone still has one, if you run the engine on a set of water muffs and you see white sludge coming out through your prop area, you need that gasket replaced. You need high temp, Loctite. You need a torque sequence. You need to torque it. It's a process, and then you put it all together, and you don't see the fine crack that didn't show up, or it was warped or whatever, and it blows through again. And I'm sorry, I'm just kind of hard on those because it's happened. I think was it here's another thing. Yeah, sorry, Chris. They had another quirk where if you couldn't accelerate with them and they wouldn't idle, they had plastic restrictors on the intakes. So they called them bleeders is what they called them. So if an excessive amount of fuel is puddling in the top one, it bleeds down to the next cylinder, down to the next one, and so on and so forth until it exits out through the exhaust at the bottom. Now, if you've got two that are missing, they got sucked into the engine and then blown out, and then the third one's in place, those top two cylinders will flood that bottom cylinder and then make the engine not idle. That was, oh my goodness, when did we finally hear that from Mercury? That would have been probably about 1993 or 94. They finally had that figured out, that the plastic restrictors was a silly idea, the plastic bleeders was a silly idea, rather than using hoses like other companies do. Oh man. So once we found that, guys would be coming in and they'd, this is what it does. Oh, pop the side covers off, put these new ones in. And yeah, it's interesting. I'd put it in with a ballpoint pen. It would sit on the end of the pen, you'd put it in, and then you take a punch and give it a wrap and knock it down into the hole. So do I like Tower of Powers? Honestly, no, not anymore. Not anymore. When we were working, there's lots of reasons. There's lots of reasons. The bad starters, the ability to start, the two chokes, the fact that you had to take way too much stuff off to work on them. I guess the sound, I like the sound. You know from the ear or from listening to them if they're going to work when you take them out on the water, or even if we run them outside on water muffs, you can hear. You know if they're going to work. You always run them on the dyno anyway, but you know they make there's a hissing noise that they make that other engines don't make, and it's just that particular engine, so you know that they're going to work. But just through the years of having the fumble with them and the Tower of Power, it's an engine that I've kind of taken off the list of engines that I even want to work on anymore. They're getting old, they're outdated. It's time that people with Tower of Powers, don't hate me for saying this, guys. I know some of you guys love them. It's a religion to you, but it's next time it breaks, it's time to move on. It is. It is. It is. Oh, what do we got here? Yeah, so tired of gaskets leaking. So we get a lot of those Johnson engines that come in that leak the leaking gaskets on the back, or pretty much any gasket that I think is going to leak. I'll put a sealer on it outside of head gaskets. You don't put sealers on head gaskets, but exhaust cover gaskets and things like that. Yes, I'll put a sealer on those. And what I actually use is super weather strip adhesive. Canadian Tire, Part Source, places like that. That's what I use. In between, this is some information here for you. In between the two halves, the metal halves, when you stick an engine together, we use a Permatex 535, I think it is. It's a blue tube with purplish strawberry smelling sealant in it, and that's what we seal the halves with so that they don't blow through. If anyone is out there rebuilding, and like I said, I've got a whole bunch of rebuilds coming up, and I'm going to do some videos on them. I'm going to be popping the heads off. I bought some engines on Facebook. I know I get on here and I tell you guys these horror stories about Facebook. I'm really hoping that I don't have one. I do. I'm hoping. I'll pull the heads off and see what I'm into. If it's just a straightforward rebuild, I'm gonna be a happy guy. Because I paid money for these guys. I paid $1,500 for two engines. So we'll see. So I'm starting off in the hole. Some of the engines that I am rebuilding, I'm rebuilding a 100 Evinrude on spec. So basically, I'm going to have a 100 horsepower engine that'll fit. It'll take the place of a 90, a 115, and a 100. You just change the carburetors and Bob's your uncle kind of thing, and they're back on the water. So I'm going to have that power head ready to go. So then I'll take their power head off. I'll put this new power head on, and they're running. That way, they're not spending their summer waiting for me to rebuild their engine. I've got one ready to go. That's my thoughts. So yeah, I'll do some definitely going to do some videos on that, because it's going to be too cold to walk outside and do those videos pretty soon. Will some more grease help? So, guys, greasing is fine to a point. At some point, throwing more grease at something doesn't do anything. And I had a video there. It was a short video, 15 seconds, of a control box. And what had happened with the control box is it was sticking, and it wasn't moving easily. So the guy kept opening it up, and he kept shoving more and more grease in. So grease wasn't the answer. A new control box was. So for those of you that are just joining me, if I'm not getting questions, what I'm doing is going through my videos and explaining the videos of why they were made, or the things that I found on them while I was working at them or doing them. Chris asks, how common is air leaks from crank seals on older two-stroke engines? So if you're talking about the seals in between the two cylinders, I've seen Johnson 140s come in, and they start off, would they be just a little over 3/16 wide? And I've probably got, a 1/16 taken off both sides of the sealer ring. Okay, they're about this big, and they go in between the pistons to seal them off from one another, so that they're the air fuel charge just goes into one cylinder. They don't scavenge or share. So I've seen them worn right down to the point where they're really sharp to the touch, and they're worn what you would think completely out, but they're still sealing. They're still working. Now, if you're talking about Labyrinth seals on Mercury, so they work a little bit different than what Johnson Evinrude used through the years, where they use these large rings. Mercury used these smaller versions with a whole bunch of grooves that were cut into them. So it would look like fingers. These fingers would be wrapped around the crank, and they'd go all the way around. Over time, those can wear out, and the cylinders will then scavenge from one to the other. But I think the test for that was this. Run 25-to-1 oil. If the problem of the idling and the acceleration goes away, you need to change out the Labyrinth seals. I've only seen it one time in my history of working on engines where the seals have been that bad that putting the extra oil in made the difference. So I guess it would be up to the customer. Do they want to get the engine rebuilt, or do they just want to run extra oil until such time as the engine just finally gives up? And believe it or not, through the year and talking to people, I do hear about people, they don't have the money to rebuild the engine, so the question is, well, how much further can I run on this engine? And they're always kind of met with, well, I just don't know. Because the last thing I want to say is, yeah, it's good for 2 years, and then they're out on some lake with their kids and something happens, right? And we're even to the point now where if an engine comes in that is damaged, we don't assemble it. We don't reassemble it. So if I pull a head off of an engine and the engine is damaged, I don't put the head back on. And the reason I don't put it on is if someone's going to sell that engine, or someone's going to reuse that engine in a situation where they shouldn't be, they've got to put it back together, not me. So it doesn't leave my shop running. That's in order to protect myself. So crank seals on older two-strokes, it's rare that I see those fail, Chris. But also keep in mind, guys, in places where it's a lot busier than where I am, but I guess, well, maybe not. I guess a lot of these old engines are going to have hundreds of hours on them anyway, but I guess if someone ran them On the coasts, they might have 1,200 hours on, where I might have 600 hours on. They might see more damage to the seals at that time. But I'm thinking by the time, by taking engines apart and looking at them, by the time anything has failed, it'll probably have been the pistons and the rings that give out long before those seals do in most engines, because of the amount of oil that's actually sitting inside an engine. So when I do a teardown on an engine and look at it, it's a sloppy mess of fuel and oil on the inside. There's tons of it inside. So unless something has failed on the outside, where a bleeder is let go or it's venting out or something, the premature wear typically doesn't happen on the inside. It's the pistons and the rings. What do we got? I haven't done any first runs of engines. We did quite a few of those and actually got some decent views. I did a video on Merc Cruisers when they start to sink on you for no apparent reason, or a person doesn't know that they're where the water's coming from, and it's usually the shifter boot tears, and that allows water to get directly into the boat. Now, I want to touch on that because that's not the only way that this can happen. On Merc Cruisers, the horns at the back, it kind of does this. It's a U. So you've got exhaust manifold, and then it goes down to U, and it's bolted onto the back of the boat. If those bolts let go and it's no longer sealed against the back of the boat, when you run the engine, instead of the water and exhaust leaving the boat, it goes into the boat. So I've seen that a couple times through the years, where we actually had to pull the engine out and then re-bolt the guy's exhaust back in place because he was filling his boat full of water. And of course, another obvious way is cracked block, or the frost plugs have been pushed out. You're referring to all series. Help me out, Nathan. Series of... Done a lot of talking here. Help me out. Still coming across a lot of my dog videos. You guys should watch those. It's cute. Connecting rods. Test for a connecting rod to see if it's if the bearing is broken or damaged. What we do is we get the piston at the top dead center, and then we'll take something and push in. And if we hear a click, that's the play and the connecting rod bearing, and that's how we know if the connecting rod has gone bad. That or the clickety-clackety that it makes. Mercury had 2 series. Uh-oh. Help me out. 2 series of what? Sorry, Nathan. It was something that I said quite a while back? And Chris, again, back with that gear loop compatible with marine and lower units. In a pinch, it'll work. It's just not something that I would leave in. Oh, yeah. Okay, back to the Chrysler question. I got a video on here, and it's Chrysler 70 horsepower piston fell out. So that was another common thing that would happen with Chrysler and Force engines is the piston would heat up and the circlip would let go. The circlip is there to hold the piston pin from moving up and down and falling out. And we would see that every once in a while on 55s, 75s. I think those are the only ones that I've seen it. So what we would see when we would pop the head off would be a groove about 3/4 of an inch wide, running back and forth up and down where the piston's been moving. Okay, Chris, after 31 years of working in the automotive industry, I can honestly say that new vehicles aren't built as well as older models. Would you say that the newer outboards are the same? So do I believe that the quality of the build of the new stuff is as good as the old stuff when it comes to to outboards? It's a good question. I want to say, I'll say this. The stuff from the early 2000s for four-stroke stuff, I would avoid. I would 100% avoid because of what I see as when it comes in. It didn't hold up well. The second generation, and Nathan, I see your comment there, I'll get to it right away. The second generation of the Mercury stuff had quirks, but I haven't had to do a lot of repairs on the mechanical side. The fuel supply modules, tons of work on the fuel supply modules. Tons of work on the shifter seals. So these are the common things that I see with those. Pencil coils we do, spark plugs we do, but I have not seen a lot of failures on the second generation Mercury engines mechanically. It's been the stuff that Mercury purchases outside have been the major contributors to the engines failing or having to come for service. So for example, the fuel supply module was probably made to Mercury's specs, but with wrong parts put into it. So it's not Mercury's fault that these FSMs fail. It's whoever sold them the parts that went inside, because now parts have been upgraded or updated so that they don't fail anymore. So mechanically, I think they're holding up fine. The third gen four strokes have been really good. We've had fuel pump issues. We have throttle body issues. What else? The gear case has been solid. The power heads have been solid. So as far as that goes, I think, in my opinion, because of the R&D that's gone into these things, the competitive nature of someone wanting to be on the top and being, pushing everyone out of the way, pushing Yamaha aside, pushing Suzuki aside, I think everyone competing against everyone has made a stronger product when it comes to the outboard engines. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see the prices are so high now. It's because the R&D, and I can tell you, Verado engines, I've heard stories of the assembly line where when they're putting these engines together and they have to choose bearings to put in as they're building these engines and putting them together, they've got alarms on the bins. So when an engine comes down and it has a red bearing that's supposed to go in it, if you put your hand in the blue bin, the alarm goes off. They've come up with ways now to make these things better. So compared to the automotive industry, I would say that the marine industry has done a lot better job of making stuff simply last longer. So yeah, and as I mentioned, it's the expense. You got to pay for what you're getting now. The Outdrives Series 1 and 2. So you must be talking about, then, this is for you, Nathan. Series 1 and 2 would be Alpha Gen 1 and Gen 2? Or are you talking about the old MR drive and then the Gen 1 and Gen 2? And failures with that is shifter seals, and anywhere where it freezes, drive shaft seals. Because the water gets trapped inside the drive shaft seals, between the drive shaft seal and the carrier. It freezes, it expands, and pushes the seals out. Tons of it we see. And the thing is, when that happens, the customer or the owner of the boat doesn't even see the oil leaving. It gets blown out the exhaust. It gets circulated through the engine and then blown out. And the only notable thing is the gear lube monitor just simply goes down for no apparent reason. There's no oil on the ground or anything. And there lies the problem is because of those seals. And back to Chris, you talked about are the engines getting better? Again, I want to state that it's the external parts that are on the engine that are made by other companies that are failing on the engines. Like I said, IACs, throttle bodies, injectors, all of that stuff that it gets dressed with. Mechanically, it seems to be really good. And outdrives and things like that, guys, if you don't want to pay the extra money that Mercury charges or BRP charges and stuff like that, Stern Drive Engineering down in the States, I think they're out of Florida, I think is where they are. They're doing some fantastic stuff with them as well. Like I know that guys are going to get on here and they're going to say, well, we've put them on, they haven't lasted, but a lot more people are starting to use those drives because it just makes sense. It's just affordable for the customer. How long does it take you to replace bellows on most Alpha outdrives? So there's two different versions. So the original one had 2 gear clamps, which is faster than the new way that in the 90s they came out with this ring that you punch in from the one side and you have to have a special tool. That drives me bonkers because I think only one time it's worked on the first swing. Outside of that, it's take it over to the bench, tap it all the way around, curve it, do all these other things so that it goes in. Put liquid dish soap on it. I've oiled it. I've ran the gambit of putting that in place. But probably the biggest tip that I can give to you so that you never have to put them on it, like if they fall off after you do them, use Crazy Glue. We've used bellows adhesive and had issues where they just pop back off. Crazy Glue holds them in place. So there are 2 tools that we have to use for the newer stuff. We've got a pair of almost like, what would they be called? Almost like a scissors, reverse scissors where they open up. So we actually spread the exhaust one and then we pull it on and then quickly do it. So we're going to charge out probably 2.5 hours worth of work on that. And on a good day, provided I haven't glued my head to the floor when the Crazy Glue hits the floor and I put my hair in it, probably an hour and a half I can be in and out and have all the boots done. If we have to do the shifter boots or the shifter bellows, that takes a little bit more time, and usually it's a 2-person job if you want to do it efficiently and quickly. And I've actually made a tool to make life a lot easier with that too. And the tip I'll give you with that is the old cable, the inside cable that you pull out, and the end that threads into the cable, you cut it so that it's just threads left. And now you take that cable, you put that threaded end back onto the cable, and you compress it and pinch it on. Then you thread that cable into the old cable before you pull it out, and you're left with a cable inside the boat. So then when you go to put the cable back in, you simply pull on the cable that's inside the boat. That speeds everything up. Huge. But yeah, the bellows, we probably do 3 or 4 of those a year. And like I said, check this out. My boy this year. So he's doing a bellows, okay? And like I said, we use Crazy Glue. All of a sudden, he's putting one together, and all of a sudden I hear him, he's mad and he's swearing and he's screaming. I look over and he popped the glue bottle open, and he had glue all over his hand. So Crazy Glue, also his hand is like stuck like this, and he's trying to open it, and you can see the skin is just stretching. He said, "What do I do? What are you? Oh, you run to the acetone, boy." Anyway, he ran to the bathroom. He was trying to use soap to get it off, but I took the acetone, poured it on his hands, and that cleared everything up. That was pretty intense, though. He was really worried that his hand is going to be stuck like that for a week. That guy. Excuse me. A buddy of mine has a 98 Johnson 115. He runs it religiously every month. At least once he had it. It's still... Well, yeah. You know what? I didn't show a YouTube video of it this week. What was it? It might have been, no, it was last week. It was last week because I had a buddy of mine in helping me. We took a water pump off of a Mercury 60 horsepower 4-stroke that was still pumping water. And we opened it up and we looked at it, and the vanes were not curved, they were physically bent and burnt like this. And it still pumped water. So although your friend still has the original pump from 1998, at any point that pump can fail. The rubber can break, it might be burnt, something can happen to it. It's the risk of something that can happen. So if we put a new impeller in and we still reuse the old housing and the old insert and the plate because the plate wasn't damaged or whatever, we're in a good place. Now I'm going to touch on this so that, and I did a video on this, but I'll reiterate that video to you. A fellow was running his stern drive and he was driving down the lake, and for some reason or another his water pump failed. He might have picked up some debris, so a plastic bag. He might have picked up weeds or something. But anyway, his impeller failed and he burnt up his engine. Not to the point of needing a new engine, but he burnt up the bellows, the exhaust bellows inside the boat and the exhaust bellows outside the boat. So he did some damage, like, you know, maybe to the tune of $1,500 or $2,000 worth of damage to his boat. So what he was going to do was he was going to go to his insurance company and talk to them and say, hey, I want to put this through insurance. Okay, which, you know, he has the right to do that, or the right to try. You know, if he could prove that he picked up a plastic bag, well, he picked up a plastic bag and burnt his engine out. I was dealing with, and I've got an insurance adjuster that comes around and he asks my opinion on what I think caused failures on engines. And I said, you know what? Ask him when his last maintenance was. And he said, well, he says he had it done in 2012, this impeller. I think that's what it was, around 2012. So we're a lot of years later. We're 13, 14 years later since he changed his impeller. So even if he would have changed it 5 years ago, hear me out. It's recommended that you change your impeller every 300 hours or every 3 years. Okay, so 300 hours inside of 1 year, change your impeller. Every 3 years, change your impeller. So the insurance company was able to say you have been doing inadequate maintenance on your engine. The factory believes that your product or your part has a life of 3 years. You exceeded the life of the 3 years. At any time, that can fail. Didn't matter whether he said, well, there was plastic on it. It didn't matter if it sucked up weeds. It didn't matter anything. The lifespan of that part had ended already, and it's possible that it could have failed at any time, giving them enough reason to say that it could have been that the pump just failed. So that's why, you know, he gets a gold star that he's still able to run his engine with his, and he saved money for all of those years on his water pump. But the smart thing would be to swap it out. And then he's got another, 25, 26, 27 years before he has to do it again, right? What do we got here? Yeah, throughout the year, we work on a lot of Yamaha product. So one of our camps a while back, they actually, you know what, they do this quite often. They don't bring one engine in. They don't bring 2 engines in. They'll bring 7 of them in. And that's what I made a video about, a short about it the one day. And it was just, I lined up the engines, basically said this is what's going on. And these are engines that we have to get done fairly quickly. Fortunately, they all basically come through with the same problem. It's either a carburetor or a water pump. It's the same company that's running the fake Yamaha. And again, if you missed the start of the stream, I touched on it a little bit. They took it out again after I fixed it, and we're going to see what happens with it. If it runs good, they're going to bring more in. I know some people don't like that, but you got to make ends meet. You got to make ends meet. Chris is asking, what do you guys do in the winter when boating season is over to stay busy in the shop? Well, I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5 engines, maybe 6 or 7 engines for sure that I have to rebuild. But that's not going to take me the winter. In fact, if I do, I could probably tear them 2 down a day. So it's not going to take a lot of time, but that's what I'll be doing. That's what I've got planned for an income or creating an income for spring. I'll have some engines ready to go. I've got a couple of them pre-sold. So I'm going to do well. I'll do videos on them. So what am I going to do in the off season? Well, I'm going to do those engines. I'm going to continue making videos, and we have a golf sim in the showroom that I put in 2 years ago now. And what I'm probably going to do is we might even start making video content on that. Not for this channel, but for a golf channel is one of the things that I have in mind to do. So what we'll do is we'll set up the camera to video us. It shows the screen, it shows where the shot goes, and people can just watch along as we horse around and golf. Obviously, there's no money in it. That's not why we would be doing it. Eventually, there might be. You never know. There's a huge following for golf. But as far as what do we do in the boating season, when it's done, we're done. I still go to the shop. We shorten our hours. We'll go from, pretty soon we'll go from 9 till 3. We'll shorten those hours up. And then we'll go from 10 till 2. And then I'll go to the shop, and that'll be my time that I'm there. And as I mentioned at the start of the stream, I might have a lot more to do because it's just going to be me now at the shop because my son is leaving. He's going to go start working in the mines. So I'll just be the only guy swinging wrench. I'll be the only guy cleaning and getting everything together. So it's not a money-making business for the winter by any means. And I guess when my dad was working, when my dad ran the place, for a while he would do satellite dish installs for Star Choice. So that was what he would do to continue making money in order to keep the shop afloat. But he did it for all different reasons. The goal of the shop for me is to make enough money so that when winter comes, we're fine, right? Our bills are paid for. We've got some storage going on for boats outside. We've got the odd job that comes in. It keeps the lights on. Our property's paid for. We spent some money this year. We repainted the building, which you guys are probably going to see in some of the upcoming videos. We got the rear fence replaced because it had been broken into, and I finally said enough's enough. We put a brand new fence up. So I got that stuff to pay for. Those were the expenses. Outside of that, nothing really. So it's fairly easy. But when my dad ran the shop, he used to sell boats, and he would floor plan boats at the start, and then eventually once he had enough capital, he would pay cash for them. Cash for them is the way to go because you don't pay, you negate the interest. But what he would do at the start, and I'm sure he aged quickly and gave him gray hair, and was probably one of the most stressful things that he ever did was he started bringing in expensive boats. And well, I guess for the time, $30,000 boats. And when you put something on a floor plan, you negate the interest and the payments for, say, 6 months. After those 6 months arrive, you have to start paying for those boats. So you have to, just like you'd make payments on a car, we're now making payments on a $200,000 or $300,000 loan at that time that you've taken out on those boats, right? And I saw things different back then, and I applied the things that I saw different in the way I run the business now. So I'm at a point now where we easily make winter because I just do things different. We sell 50 engines a year, or in the past years we've sold 50. It wasn't as many this year. We work with Mercury's programs so that for every engine we sell, if we sell a certain amount of engines, we get a certain amount of money back in rebates or to buy our year-end stuff. So if we get a $5,000 kickback from Mercury for all these engines we sold, we'll purchase our winterizing products for it: oil, antifreeze, storage fog, fuel stabilizer, and double or even triple that money in that short time period. So we're not actually utilizing our own money, we're utilizing Mercury's money to make money. So I view things different. One of the big things that we always had, or issues we had with, or my dad had, was he couldn't understand the concept of, if an engine on the showroom floor was paid for, so if it was a 20 horsepower Mariner, for example, because that's what we sold way back when, and he had a boat sitting outside, he wouldn't adjust the price on either of them, because his belief was, the 20 Mariner sold, I don't owe any money on it, but he still owed money on the boat that was outside. So rather than selling that engine for $2,000 back then instead of $2,500, he'd hang on to it, not realizing that he's paying interest on that engine even though it's paid for, indirectly. Because he could have taken that money that was on that Mariner and applied it against, after it was sold, applied it against his loan. So we would go to war about this every couple of years, and I'd try to explain to him, you're still paying money, you're still paying interest. But he would just argue, and then I just get mad and probably end up leaving or go to the back or whatever. But back to your question, what do I do in the winter? It's usually nothing. It's usually nothing. And that's what my dad did too. Like I said, outside of Star Choice for satellite installs, and for the majority of the time of my career, November would come and I would get laid off. And I would return in March, April, or May, depending on when the ice would clear and when customers would start coming in. Yeah, that's that. And what about you guys? Like, you're out west, or sorry, out east. So you guys get to stay open. We've talked about, or through the years, we talked about doing sleds, and I think, it would have been, I remember working on some sleds in the early 90s, and then that all kind of fell through. We used to do, I think, Johnson and Evinrude Bobcat, Golden Ghost, I think was another. John Deere, I think, made sleds. I remember working on some of that stuff years ago, but none of that panned out, and we kind of just threw it by the wayside. It just wasn't for us. I did a video that did quite well. It was a short. 15 horsepower four-stroke is now officially a 20. So that was kind of a cool video to do. Now, how we do that is we replace the carburetor from take the 15 off, and we put a 20 horsepower carburetor on. It's that easy. So the four-stroke stuff, we do it. We used to do it years ago with 9.9s and 15s. The Mercury 8 and 9.9, that's the difference of carburetor. The 2.5 to 3.5 is a carburetor. I do have some videos, excuse me, on the 8 and the 9.9. So the 9.9 creates a little bit more power, but the 8 is much better on fuel. The 2.5 versus the 3.5, the running characteristics of the 3.5 was better, and it created a little bit more power, but the difference between the 2.5 versus the 3.5 didn't warrant the amount of money that had to be spent between the two. The 8 to the 9.9, again, the amount of money that's needed. If this is what I would do, I would buy the 8, and then some years later, when it's no longer on warranty, I would go on Temu or Alibaba or Amazon, and I would buy a 9.9 horsepower carburetor and slap that on there. That's what I would do. $60, can't go wrong. We've had, oh my goodness, what have I done? Three, four, 5 carburetors now that I've pulled off the internet because Mercury just wanted outlandish or outrageous prices for them. $600, $700, $800, $900 for carbs. It's crazy. Nathan says, I bought a 20 horsepower Mercury before I heard about doing it. Yeah, you know what? The way I work at my shop, and again, this is me, and I know a lot of companies don't work this way. I guess I'm just a little bit unique with what I do. I'll bring in a 20 horsepower engine and I'll put it in the corner and I'll sell the 20. If a customer comes in and they ask me, hey, do you have a 15 for sale? I've got my 20 reduced far enough that the price is attractable enough for the customer just to buy the 20. Because I don't want a situation where someone spends, say, I'm throwing a number out, $3,500 on a 15 horsepower when I could have sold them a 20 for 39, right? I have a conscience. I realize that it's a little bit more money up front, but that extra power is going to make a tremendous amount of difference. It's 5 horsepower. It's not 1 or 2. It's 5. And the extra RPM, the extra speed they get, it's definitely worth going with that 20 over the 15. So I make a lot of sales that way because I try and help people out so that they understand that I am trying to help them and steer them in the right direction. So Nathan, it's bad that you bought that 20. You probably overpaid. Well, probably compared to what I charge, everyone overpays. I definitely try to help people out. Because to me, I look at it this way. An engine sitting on my floor is not making me any money. An engine that I sold you at a reduced price of something, maybe instead of me making $800 on it, I make $250, $300, $400 on it. You're going to take it out. You're going to run the engine. There's a chance that you'll wreck something or break something. And you're also going to have to come back for maintenance. See? So one carb job is $300. So if you didn't winterize it properly yourself, you bring it in, I got to take the carburetor off, clean it up, put it back together. It's $300, $400 right there. That's when I start making money on these engines I've sold. So if I got 50 engines out in the field that I sold last year, there's a really good opportunity that I can make more money off those. And that's 50 engines that I sold to people that are happy that they got a really good price from me, and they go and they advertise. Do you know Mercury came up with the 2+2 motor? I really like my 2001 25. It's great on fuel. So Chris, hear me out. You also asked a question about force, and I'm gonna give you something that's gonna surprise you. I'll relay something to you that surprises you and anyone that's listening. The Force 120 would do the same thing. Oh, I know. Isn't that something? I think it's a really, Chris, it's a really unique way that Mercury did it. And it works very well when it's set up properly. But it works like steaming monkey poo when it doesn't. So I do have a video of I'm running one on the dyno that's set up properly. And when you crack the throttle, it's instant. If the accelerator pump isn't set properly, if the actuators aren't set properly, like the distance that the travel, or when everything's all supposed to come together and the timing, it can, like I said, it can run like monkey crap, and it can be really hard to set up. So if yours is running great, don't touch a thing, leave it. But yeah, I like them. I do like that engine. Large bore displacement. I think that's one of those things that Mercury needed to do outside of the inline 6 product and inline 4 product that they had, which with the direct charge pistons, that all needed to go away. That was a great step in the right direction when that engine came out, and the 3-cylinder version as well. I think it was something that was really positive. Where they came up with the idea of running on 2 cylinders might have been emissions. It might have been fuel crunch at that time that they figured that they needed to do that. But in all honesty, as soon as you hit 1700 RPM and it starts pulling fuel off the other pistons or other carbs, it should be like any other engine, and it should take a lot of fuel to run it. Again, down at idle, we're running on the 2 cylinders, so it's good on gas for trolling around. And also keep in mind, it's a 2-stroke engine. We probably don't want to run idle too often, too long. We want to run that engine 4,500, $5,000, blow it all out, clean it all up, then back down to idle and run it around. I know that they touted it as the 2+2 that was great for trolling and good on fuel and stuff, but it suffers from the same problem that everything else does, and it's the inefficiency of the burn of the air-fuel mixture that eventually catches up with you. So be sure, run the crap out of it at times. Run quick clean through it, which is Mercury's product, to keep the ring off the, or sorry, carbon off the rings or carbon off the piston and so on and so forth. Keep it clean. Run a decent oil. Run Mercury's oil if you can. If you don't have Mercury's oil, maybe Johnson's XD100 would be good, or Yamaloo would be good. Higher end brands. I don't want to say that any other brand is better than any other brand, but kind of believe they are. I don't know, maybe. Again, I say this in my videos. I didn't pay close enough attention in chemistry to really know. Weedless gear case. Are you guys familiar with that? So years ago, early 70s, did it make it to the 80s? Johnson and Evinrude ran a weedless gear case. This funky looking gear case on their engines. Google it sometime. I don't have any pictures up here. I didn't set my software up to do it right now. But yeah, it was a funky looking thing, and I don't know if it ever actually worked. It was just kind of cool to look at. I did a video on it. I thought it was just kind of something I'd bring up here. So, okay, tower power. Again, Chris, you'd asked a question about tower power, and I resurrected a 140. This was in 2023. Now, tore it all apart, replaced everything, put it all together, eventually got it running properly, told the customer, don't touch anything. Now, the reason that I would state to not touch anything on a Mercury tower power of any of the inline stuff is number 3 cylinder and number 5 cylinder are very intolerant to the timing being out. So his goal was 60 miles an hour with this tower of power that I rebuilt. And he'd had a 115 on there and was able to do low 50s. So the idea was we would find a 140, we would rebuild it and put it on his boat. And I'll be honest, it was $8,000 by the time it was done. By the time he found a new power head, pistons, rings, control box, because his wasn't working properly, all these other things that went with this mess. And I'll say mess, and I'll hear me out, listen to this. Don't touch anything when it was finally working. Okay? So we put the 140 on it and we got 58. Maybe 59 on a good day, but not 60. He wanted a GPS 60 miles an hour. That's what he wanted. So I don't hear from the guy for a long time. All I heard was 59. He was kind of happy about it, wasn't 60, so Joey was out at the same, so Joey was one of my boys back then. He was out at the same campground, lake. And he says, yeah, did you hear? I says, what? Jeff's engine went down. Blew apart. Up and died on him. Oh. So he finally made 60, did he? I said. He says, yeah, he got 62 out of it. Took it out and it blew up on him. So him and his buddy, they got together, they messed around with the jets, and they advanced the timing and took the engine out. $8,000. The guy had gobs of money. Money was nothing to this guy. Owned a plumbing company, drove an electric Ford truck. He didn't care. It was just money. All the while he wanted to rebuild this 140, I kept trying to talk him out of it. I kept trying to steer him towards a Johnson 140, which makes a quick, easy 140. They're bulletproof. They run really well. It's a strong engine. You'd have no issues. It'll just go. Not the issues that this 140 would or could have. But in the end, he didn't listen. We rebuilt the engine and yeah. It was a long, long road to rebuild that engine. And that's another reason why I don't want to get involved with those. What else do we got here? Oh, it says I got 260 videos. And again, a lot of them were my dog. Holy, just scrolling through. Oh, I remember doing a video a long time ago. It was on a Yamaha stern drive. So the Yamaha stern drive was made for maybe 3 years, 1991 through 93 or 89 through 92 or something silly like that. But I had to do a carburetor on one, and I tore the carburetor down, and I was looking at this and I'm going, what the heck is this? The carburetor that they used on that 1990 engine was from 1977. Isn't that something, how they would just repurpose parts just to get something to work to make something inexpensive? Really old technology just to make this thing run. It was just one of those things that I just thought was just strange that's what they do or did. But then, you think back and you look back, how long did Mercury use that the hell was it? They used the Quadrajet, which was Rochester, and Mercarb. Sure, they used Mercarb right from the 70s all the way through to the 90s too. So I guess it's not out of the ordinary, I guess. I don't know. I just thought it was weird that through all the years that carburetors have been around, maybe it's because they were already good as they could be. I don't know. We work on Holleys every once in a while. I don't like working on Holleys. Holleys with their valve system and their 8 million different ways to get fuel to a different area. When they work, they're great. Don't get me wrong. When they work, they're great. I just don't like working on them per se. So we don't get many of them. No. What's the dumbest thing you've ever seen someone do to a boat? I had, well, outside of the one that was burnt, but he didn't do it himself. Okay. A boat was in the other day, and we were working on the engine, and it's from a guy that he brings a lot of product to me, a lot of boats to me. He's got a group of friends, and they all go out together on these big trips, and they seem to go on Facebook Marketplace, and they buy these boats that no one should. Anyway, this boat shows up this year, and we're looking at it, and we look at the floor inside. The floor was the floor, but it's what they did to the floor. They put the siding from a plastic garage on the floor to use to walk on, like where you would put carpet. They used the siding off of a garage, so it was plastic. That's one thing. Then what they did was they put on a silver red Lund type boat. I think it was silver, maybe might have been silver blue. I can't remember. They put black silicone on every rivet on there. And I thought there was a third thing that was really out of the ordinary on there. Maybe not. But I've seen high bucket back seats that are out of vehicles in boats. like driver's seats. They put those in. They tighten them down to the floor. I don't know. I don't know if that would qualify as dumb, but people do weird stuff, I guess. That's got me thinking. What have we seen that people do? Huge antennas, things like that. CB radios are I guess not dumb but strange. Put all their batteries on one side, so the boat lists to one side. Some things just aren't. I guess what I'll do is next time something weird comes in like that, I'll make a video. Nothing is really standing out of silly things that they've done. Now, silly things when they come in for repair, like leaving everything from their last trip in the boat and you've got to get inside there and work on it. That to me is dumb. I've seen guys, they show up with the tubes still inflated inside the boat and expect us to work on them. or their wakeboard stuff, or their skis, or heaven forbid you've got to take a control box off and someone threw a hook in behind there. Do I watch Danger? Is it Danger or Danger? Marine channel. I know of him, but no, I don't watch his channel. I watched, what was his name? It's a young guy, boat something or other. I watched the other day, and he was working on buying and selling engines off of Facebook Marketplace. I thought that was kind of neat. I don't know, or I don't think he's got any formal training, so it was fun to watch. Fun to watch what he was doing and the approach, knowing that he's gonna get to where he needs to go. It's just that the approach may or may not be right. And yeah, I thought it was kind of neat. I thought that was neat. But yes, I am familiar with him. But when I watch YouTube, I'll watch golf videos. I watch movies, and a lot of it is stuff that's just playing in the background, stuff that I can listen to more so than watch. And that's kind of why I'm doing this kind of stuff with the podcast, as well as a lot of the podcast feel of the stuff that I do in the yard. It's so that if someone's driving to work and they've got it on, or they know that my video has popped up, they can just play it over their radio and they can just listen to me. Yeah, I try to do a lot of the things so that whether I'm descriptive enough or I tell a story. It's a lot of times I'm just telling a story, and I seem to get the most views from those types of videos. I know that I don't know if he does anything like this. I know that he does videos where he does repairs and things like that. I do repairs. I do long form videos, but I just don't get views from them. It's unfortunate. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, if I'm doing anything wrong, or is it just the YouTube lottery. I know that in September, I think it was August or September, I thought my channel blew up. I got 200,000 views. I got a follow-up with 50,000 views. I got another follow-up with 30,000 views. But those were views based on me walking around the yard talking and telling my stories of just like I am doing here. These seem to do the best. My videos, I believe, are informative. I believe that they show you how to do this stuff. They show me doing it. That it can be done. I show in ways with tips that DIY guys can do it. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. I'd like to blow up. I would. There's a hype function now on YouTube, so people can hype your videos. That's supposed to allow more people to see them. People subscribing to videos, people sharing the videos, all of that stuff helps. And I think that had I continued instead of stopping all those years ago, I probably would have been one of those guys that's way up top, doing really well, supporting themselves, doing videos and so on and so forth. But then again, real life still gets in the way. You can't make videos constantly. Oh, what do we got here? Oh, yeah, I touched. I've got another video. No pain with propane is the answer to. Is this the answer to rising fuel costs? After selling and running that propane engine, I've come to the conclusion that propane's not the way to go for an outboard. No, definitely not. Guy didn't even make a season, and it was back destroyed. We'll see how the next powerhead goes that Mercury told me to put on, and I hope it works. I do. I hope it wasn't something else. I did a video on do new reeds make a difference? It still does fairly well. Made it back in 2022. it would never, and I think it was Chris you had asked, it would never hurt to refresh with new reads. It's never going to cause negative things to happen. It's always going to be better. That it's kind of like taking vitamins. Vitamins don't help you unless the you have a deficiency in your system, and that I guess it would same would go with reeds. If the reeds are indeed damaged or they are weak and they've lost their tensile strength, replacing them is always going to be a positive thing. It's just pulling the pin on spending the money to do it. What are you? So I'm just taking a break. Let my let my voice catch up here. And looking at videos to talk about. Yeah, those of you that are running water separated filters, for the most part, if they're the canister style, you can actually spin them off, dump them out, and put them back on. Shh. Don't tell anyone I told you that. Yeah, the white goo. So back in 2022, I show the inside of a Mercury 80. So the 90 and the 115 and the 140 and 150 would all suffer from this, the white goo. So that's that water getting past the plate. So if you go back to May 3rd, 2022, I've got a video showing the inside of one of those engines. Also back in April 16th, 2022, a failed piston still blew 110 psi. So that's another thing you guys can look at. I know that a lot of times I talk about engines running down around 105 psi and being toast or done. And that's because of what I see on the inside, not related to the amount of compression it's building, but to the wear in the cylinders. Chris, I think, this is Chris saying this, I think electric outboards or electric motors are really stupid. Now, it's technology that's been around for a really, really long time. It's inefficient. It's efficient as far as it's being battery powered, as far as spending money on gas and so on and so forth. Better for the environment. But the batteries, they're just not where they need to be. They just aren't. So I think anyone running an electric outboard is in a niche where they want to do things for the environment. They want to do things in a positive way. They get the idea of running an electric motor. And I don't have anything negative to say about that. I think if it works for you, it works for you. And that's anyone that drives an electric vehicle as well. If you're happy doing what you're doing, yay. But as far as the motors go and the batteries go, they got so much further that they need to go. So much further. The battery technology just it has to be there. The outboard, like I said, it's just the same technology rebranded, remade, right? We've had electric trolling motors and whatnot for how many years already? We take the motor then and we move the motor up to the top and we put a battery on it and we say it's something new. It's nothing new outside of the batteries that we're using with them. I know that they're really expensive for what they are. So you're spending $5,000 to get something equivalent to what, 3.5 horsepower? Is that worth it? I guess if someone has that much of a conscience that they don't want to harm the environment with that, well, what are they going to do with the battery when it's done? Or if the battery dies, spend another $2,500? Ouch! I took a course on electric outboards and mainly the batteries, and you're 100%, Chris. Batteries hate colder temperatures. The batteries also hate hot temperatures. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but the batteries, when we put them into a Mercury motor, they're assigned to that particular motor and that motor only. It's like it would assign a signature or number to it and say, this is my battery. So it has a little bit of a CPU on it that maintains all the temperatures that you've ran it at, where it's high, it's low, how many times you've charged it, the length of time in between the charge, all of these things that it needs to possibly negate your warranty if the battery fails. So if we bring in one of those electric motors and we store it outside over winter, the battery's done. The battery, regardless if the battery still takes a charge and works fine, then suddenly just doesn't work because it was stored outside and it wasn't charged properly, the warranty is void. So anything like that we would bring in would be a special engine or motor, and battery that we would bring in to be sold immediately. Because even if it sits in our showroom, we have to take the battery out and charge it and keep it at a certain temperature and do all of these other really wild things outside the norm that you would have to do when looking after an engine, a regular engine that would just sit on a stand and wait outside of, well, we'll just move the dust off of it. But yeah, we'll see what happens. There's lithium batteries. There's new technology coming out. Sodium-based batteries, I think, is maybe one of the latest things I've seen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And if it gets to that point, I know up here in Canada that, was it by 2030, we're not going to be able to purchase gasoline cars anymore. Everything's supposed to be electric, but we'll see. Well, the infrastructure is not there. I just saw them put in hundreds and hundreds of solar panels over in one area of the city, enough to run. We've got I looked it up. We've got 178,000 houses or buildings or whatever in the city. Houses. So no, it would be houses in the city, not counting our big buildings. They put up all of these solar panels, enough to run 400 homes. Sounds a bit expensive, doesn't it? And if it's not sunny, they're not working. And if they get dirty, they're not working. And if they break, they got to replace them, and on and on and on and on. I think what we should do is just put a nuclear reactor in here and call her done. Make power that way, which we should have done many years ago, because we don't have that in Saskatchewan. I think out in Ontario they have it. I don't even know if BC has it. And in fact, out in Prince Edward Island, they're using coal again. Crazy. You look at the environment that an outboard has to endure. Electric outboards make zero sense to me. Say nothing about salt water. Yeah, I don't know what what the lifespan of them is going to be in salt water. I guess the plus is the only thing that's going to be in salt water is going to be the prop and the, for lack of a better term, gear case. So they're not circulating the water through. So I guess that would be a plus with that. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I know that guys that are running 40 horsepower and 50 horsepower equivalents, I know they're measured in watts, but they're running huge banks of batteries, hundreds of pounds of batteries in their boats. And I could just see how the efficiency of that engine having to push all that extra weight would just be horrible. It would just be terrible. And then the longevity, the distance they can travel, the amount of time they can run at full throttle. So this little, was it the equivalent of a 3.5 horsepower engine, maybe an hour at full throttle? How far do you get? What if you don't have a second battery? It's not like a gas tank where it's a third out and a third back, and then you've got a third in reserve. Or you pull up next to a guy who's got a boat and say, yeah, I'm kind of out of gas, can I have some? And they hand you a jerry can. The end result of that battery dying or the battery prematurely not failing over time is you getting stuck out on the water. Fortunately, though, a lot of the stuff that Mercury is selling at the moment is small enough that you probably don't have it on a big boat. But those guys with the big boats, with the 40s and 50s and 60 horsepower equivalents, I don't think I'd want to be rowing that or paddling that. Ultrasonic cleaner in action. So a couple years back, Mercury told us that in order for us to get warranty on carburetors or carburetor cleanings, we had to get an ultrasonic. Now, I don't think ours works properly, or we're not using the right chemical in it, because we still end up having to manually clean everything as it comes out of there. So, yeah, if anyone's got any ideas, we're running a Spray 9 product in ours. Smells nice, makes the outside look kind of shiny and clean, does nothing for the inside. So, yeah, there's that. Chris says the tree huggers are delusional. Well, yeah. I agree somewhat. And unfortunately, we see delusion or people being delusional, or delusion, I guess, in every walk of life. And unfortunately, it comes down to one person selling their great idea to like-minded people that get all of this stuff rolling in the wrong direction, that don't want to listen to the other people because they believe the other people have too much of an invested interest in another technology that is, well, destroying the world. We'll just say it like that, and we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, people that we put in charge. Oh, yes. I did a video back in 2021 on a Coleman 9.8 horsepower that certainly looks like a lot of other engines on the market. In fact, I'm quite certain that Tohatsu made those, and they made Mercury as well. Isn't that something, though? And they aren't the same. They are, but they aren't. I noted that where Mercury used a lot of metal parts, Coleman used plastic, or Tohatsu used plastic to build the Coleman ones. So yeah, they run the same, they sound the same, they're just inexpensive for a reason. And did you guys ever see one of my first water pump videos? I made a mistake in it, and I got torn into a lot on it. That's why the comments are disabled. So if you ever watch that one, I'm really young, and the way we were putting the housing on the water pump was wrong to the way that I do it now. Maybe I'll do it. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever do another water pump video, because they're available everywhere on the internet. And anytime I put up a new video about stuff that I've already done, YouTube will just show you the new video. So it just kind of negates the old video so that no longer is seen. Like the gear oil ones. We did a gear oil one. I thought it was pretty good, but again, it never got views. Restoring Memories episode 2. Again, that was those long videos that we made about me and the boys getting that engine for the brother with the two kids' father that had passed away, for the uncle, I guess, to get that together for Father's Day. Never took off. I just don't understand. I thought that was gonna do really good. 200 views. Crazy. 500 with one. Crazy. Do I do jet skis or jet boats? No, we don't. We have our dyno that we can hook onto the gear case, or prop shaft, I should say, on stern drives and outboards. We don't have an adequate way or anything that's close enough for us to adequately test jet skis or jet boats. So I'm familiar with the technology. I have worked on them in the past. Not jet. Well, I guess I did some jet skis. A buddy of mine had some Polaris, I think, brand, and I had to do a starter on them and update an ignition system on them. That's what I did. But again, jet boats. We used to have. Oh, pardon me. Force engines would come in on jet boats, and we would work on those, and jet boats and L drives, I guess. We had a jet boat come in the other day, and it was, what brand was it? I don't know. It was one of those 13-foot jet boats, not a big one. And we just replaced or installed an ignition switch for him, but we didn't get into the jet drive or anything like that. Last year, though, I did set up an 80 horsepower jet for a guy. It was an outboard, and I did learn something that was pretty cool on them. Now with the jets, if the impeller and the wear cone, is that what it's called? I can't remember. Anyway, the housing, if it wears, you can move the impeller forward and backwards now, so that you can actually collect an area of the cone that's not worn out. I thought that was pretty slick. Outside of that, I know that at the shop we ordered some in for guys that were doing their own and probably still sitting there because I don't think they came and picked them up. But there was no adjustments. Once that housing was shot, it was shot. You had to replace it. So the technology's come a little ways with that now. So that's kind of good. But no, we get lots of people. They call in and they ask us, do we work on them, and we just turn them away. There's a guy out of town that possibly is supposed to work on them. He's a Suzuki dealer, and he buys and sells them. So we just send them there. Mind you, the Honda dealership sends all their Hondas to us. And I've since said no. I've turned Hondas away now. Parts availability, a lot of stuff is non-current. A lot of the Honda product in our areas from the early 2000s or late 90s, you just can't get parts for the stuff anymore. And it can get expensive to work on, and people just don't want to spend the money on the old stuff. I'm happy not doing them. I'd rather work on stuff that I'm 100% sure I know exactly what I'm doing. You learn the symptoms, you know what you've got to go after, you can get stuff done really quick. But yeah, when you've got to spend half an hour trying to find a part schematic for a Honda engine, no. Honda can do them. Honda's supposed to be doing them, not us. Videos on connecting rod caps on engines. Did you know that you got to put the right connecting rod the right way on the right rod, or the cap and the rod have to go together, and they actually break them at the factory and then put them together so that they only go together one way. If you put them together the wrong way, they catch the needles. Just something. Oh, excuse me. Back to look at questions. Did I miss any? No, that's pretty much it. So I think it's 10:41. I think I've been on here for quite a while. 2 hours, it says. Holy cow. 2 hours, and I think the stream went down the first time because the computer cut out on me. Oh, yeah, October 1st, 2024. This was safe in the 70s. Would it be safe about now? So if you guys get a chance, go look at that video. It was an old boat that came in with, I think it was clothesline steering, and it was really shallow. And, you know, it was one of those things where we did it in the 70s and probably partially into the 80s because it was accepted. Everyone ran small boats at that time. It's just what we did. And you'll look at that and you'll go, OMG, that's what they used to do. They used to pull kids around on tubes or on skis and stuff. These old boats that were just barely out of the water with old 40s on the back, but it seemed to work. But I guess for that, I think I need to be done. My voice is starting to go. I've done a lot of talking. I'll probably, we'll do videos during the week. Rehash the videos, I should say, on hopefully next Friday. I'll throw up another video. I'll see you guys here next Friday. Maybe this will start to grow. Chris, Nathan, I appreciate you guys throwing questions up for me. It definitely helps me. And Dave, thanks for stopping in. And Dale, I appreciate you guys stopping in and watching. It makes things go a lot smoother, so I don't have to do all the talking from just up inside here. I like to try and prep some stuff before I do them, but today was kind of a, hey, it's Friday, I'm supposed to be down there, so kind of winged a lot of stuff. But again, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you guys this week in videos, and I will see you guys next week back here with Marine Doctor on air. We'll see you guys. Thanks for watching.